All right, so we have finished our hoop and now we need to back it. There are a few different ways you can do it, but this is the way that I always teach it because it's the way that I like to do it. But if you're interested in another way, you can always just Google, or not Google, maybe on YouTube, look up how to finish embroidery hoop. There's different methods as far as not using felt and just putting your fabric straight down. There is a way where you do a running stitch and then you kind of pull all of this in tight. And then you could also cut this all the way down so that it's just kind of flat. I would say that's the one method I would not recommend, because then your fabric cannot stay tight inside your hoop, and then you're going to end up getting a saggy hoop later, even if it's a few years from now. And you don't want to end up having a saggy hoop when you put all the work into this project. So this is the method that I really like to use. Now, for those who have used the Pilot friction pin, it's time to get rid of your marks. I printed my pattern, so I'm going to just walk you through the steps for what you would do for that. So don't remove your hoop or your pattern, your finished piece from your hoop just yet. What I want you to do is I want you to get an iron, a steam, a little Cricut iron-on press thing. I've seen those, and I want you to remove all of your markings. So I like to use my steamer on my iron, and I'll link a video of this, of me actually doing it, so that if you want to see it, you can. I use my steamer on my iron and I just gently go over it. Be careful of these woven wheels. You don't want to knock them and ruin anything, but just gently hold it over, steam it, or use a hair dryer, whatever other tool that you want to use. After you've done that, you want to take a look at your piece and see if there are any spots that you missed stitching. Like, you might have not realized it until just now, like, oh, I forgot to put the dots on the colons for the reference. I might have forgotten to, this piece is a little bit hard, I feel like, to forget some things, but maybe some little details on here on the side of the banner you might have forgotten. So once you've removed your pin marks, check and see if there's anything you need to stitch or to fix, because you don't want to remove this from the hoop until you've done that, because it's already perfectly pulled taut. It's exactly where it's been. This is just a good time to fix any mistakes that need to be fixed. Once you have done that, you're going to want to remove your fabric from your hoop if it is not already centered. Mine, I did my best to keep it perfectly centered when I put it in this hoop originally, so I do not need to remove it. But whether you need to remove it or you don't need to remove it, this is a good time to tighten it and make sure that it is perfectly tight before we move on to the next step. So I'll just gently kind of pull around the edges, make sure nothing has gotten loose over time. Make sure this top part is pulled all the way tight. And then just look at it one more time, because we're getting ready to start cutting. And once we start cutting, there's no turning back. So just take a second, really look at it. If you want to, like, maybe even step away from it for a day so that you don't get like too like, oh yeah, it's fine. And you want to give yourself a little bit of time to breathe and think about it, you can do that. But once you're happy with where this is inside your hoop, you are ready to back. We're going to turn it over and we're going to cut away our white or our thin fabric first. Now, because we have these woven wheels, be cautious of putting your hoop directly on anything and scooting it around, because if you do, you might end up messing up those woven wheels. So I'm going to try and hold this up in place, because normally I do when I'm cutting this. It's a little bit harder in the video because too many words. So with fabric scissors, you're going to make a cut, and we're going to cut all the way down to the bottom of our hoop. So as you can see here, boop, I'm cutting all the way down to the bottom just of the white fabric. You can see the Kona is still right here. All right. So we have all of our white thin fabric off. Take a second, see if you need to maybe trim it down any more, and these little spots. It doesn't have to perfectly be all the way down to the inside of the wooden part, but as close as you can get is ideal. Okay, so next we're going to cut our Kona fabric, but we're not going to cut it all the way down like we did with our white fabric. We're going to leave just enough fabric so that when we fold it over, it doesn't hit the hoop, but it covers the wooden portion. So if you want to test it first, I cut just a little bit. I might have to put this down. So I'm going to cut just a little bit here. And then fold that down and see where it hits. So that's about right, but it might be cutting it a little close, so I might make it a little bit thinner or cut it a little bit closer more so. And then I'm just going to continue that all the way around. I'm going to pick up and turn, so try not to mess up those woven wheels. Okay, so once you've cut all that away, you can just slowly go around, make sure your fabric is not too long. This is a good thing to do now rather than when you have hot glue on the piece, because once you have hot glue on it, you're not going to want to try and also start cutting with your scissors. So, like I mentioned, this is a good time for your glue gun to be heating up and also to get your felt. Make sure there's no extra floss on it. You can put your scissors aside for now. And then once you get your glue gun, you're going to want to glue right here on this wooden edge. And I like to, based on my glue gun, because it only stays liquidy for so long, I only work in probably about this large of an increment. So I'll put some glue down and then I'll just gently fold my fabric over, and then I'll put a little more glue down, fold it over, a little more glue down, fold it over, and just keep repeating the process. All right, so I'm going to add just a little bit of glue, not too much because you don't want it to end up leaking onto your fabric when you push it down. So then you just use your finger to gently push it over. And if there's any little pockets that are sticking up, we'll deal with that right at the end. So work in those small increments. All right, so once you've glued everything down, if there's any spots, like I have a spot right here that looks like it could use a little more glue, you're just going to gently put your glue gun on underneath that little fold and then push it down. If it doesn't bother you, don't really need to worry about it. It's not absolutely crucial that it's completely flat because we're going to put our felt here in just a second. All right. So next, you're going to get your felt. You're going to just put it right on top and then use your fingers to gently push it in. And then what I like to do is I like to put a little bit of glue at 4 different points rather than around the whole thing, just because I don't like running the risk of possibly adding too much and then it hitting the fabric on the front of the piece. Again, I'm picking up and turning just because of those woven wheels. Just a little dab, not too much, because again, you don't want it to overflow onto your fabric, meaning the front of your fabric. Obviously, it's going to touch the edges of your fabric. Okay, last corner here. And once that's in, you can use your fingers to kind of push down on those parts that aren't glued. And then turn it over, make sure you get any little strings. And if you have like washi tape, you could use washi tape to pull any thread, little tiny pieces of thread. Sometimes just as stitching, you get little threads left over, so use some washi tape. Probably nothing much stronger than that. I used to use a lint roller, and I think that works well, so long as the piece doesn't have, see, little extra strings, so long as the piece doesn't have any woven wheels or anything that can get pulled from the top. But washi tape just feels like a slightly safer option. All right, so that's it. We have finished our piece. Now we can just prop it up and enjoy it over the Easter season. So thank you so much for joining me along with the stitch along. Hopefully you will come back in December for our Christmas stitch along. Hope to see you then.